In Major League Baseball, the rules for being eligible to play for the postseason are straightforward. According to MLB.com, any player who is on the 40-man roster or 60-day injured list as of 11:59 p.m. on August 31st is eligible for the postseason. Simple enough. If a team wants a certain player to play for them in the postseason, they must be on the roster before September. Any player added to the roster after August is not eligible. Those rules may sound simple enough, but notice how it says 40-man roster, not 26-man roster. Any minor league player who is on that roster is eligible to play in the postseason even if he did not make a major league appearance prior to September. In the World Series this very year, did we see two examples of that from both teams. The Texas Rangers' Evan Carter and Arizona Diamondbacks' Jordan Lawlar both played in the World Series despite not making their major league debuts until September. A player does not even need to have made an MLB appearance to play in the postseason, as a handful of players made their major league debut in the playoffs. Most famously, Adalberto Mondesi of the Kansas City Royals made his big league debut in Game 3 of the 2015 World Series. He was on the 40-man roster prior to September of that year and was eligible to be added to the playoff roster. This quirk of baseball players playing in the postseason, despite not making their big league debuts until September, has gained traction in the past decade or so. In addition to the two players mentioned a moment ago, several other notable players also played in the postseason despite not making their MLB debuts until September of that very same season. Such players include Corey Seager, Francisco Alvarez, Gavin Lux, Sean Murphy, Jesus Luzardo, and many, many others. While it seems normal practice nowadays, this was a rarity 20 years ago. In fact, the first notable occurrence, if not the first ever occurrence of this, changed baseball forever. Thanks to the rule that any player on the 40-man roster is playoff eligible, and not just the 26, formerly 25-man roster, one team took advantage of this. On September 15, 2002, in the middle of a playoff race, the Anaheim Angels called up one of their top pitching prospects. You may have heard of this player. His name is Francisco Rodriguez. Splitting time in AA and AAA that year, the 20-year-old reliever threw 83 1/3 innings, earning an ERA of 2.27, a whip of 1.080, and struck out a crazy 120 batters. Known by his nickname K-Rod, he continued his excellence once called up, as he threw 5 2/3 innings across 5 games in September, allowing 0 runs and striking out 13. The Angels ended the season as the wildcard team and were set to face the New York Yankees in the first round of the playoffs. Ahead of the American League Division Series, Anaheim added Rodriguez to the postseason roster despite his extreme inexperience as a big league player. Since this practice was unheard of at the time, everyone in the baseball media had a frenzy of questions. How on earth could a 20-year-old rookie who made his debut in the middle of September be eligible for the playoffs? Tim Meade, the Angels' vice president of communications, said, Francisco replaced right-handed Steve Green, who initially was placed on the DL on March 11th while recovering from off-season Tommy John surgery. Steve was later transferred to the 60-day DL on April 5th. The rules allow a club to replace an injured pitcher eligible for postseason with another pitcher. Green's spot was simply replaced by Francisco, who was eligible because on August 31st, he was on the 40-man roster. Of course, there was pushback from this move, from at least one ESPN writer. Why was there pushback? Well, the pitcher K-Rod replaced Steve Green not only didn't make a single appearance in 2002, his entire career consists of a single game played in April 2001. I can imagine why Rob Nair, member of the Baseball Writers Association, at least initially called for this rule to be closed. Imagine telling someone that your opponent was allowed to add their top pitching prospect because he's replacing an injured pitcher who last played 18 months prior. However, the fact remains that K-Rod was added to the 40-man roster prior to September, and the Angels had every right to call him up and put him on the playoff roster. It was a risky but innovative move at the time. This all begs an important question. Did this risky move work? Did adding a 20-year-old pitcher with 5 games of Major League Baseball experience work out for the Angels? Well, all Francisco Rodriguez did was have the greatest postseason by a relief pitcher in MLB history. K-Rod threw 18 2/3 innings across 11 games during the 2002 postseason. He recorded an ERA of 1.93 while striking out 15 batters and limiting hitters to a 156 batting average. All great stats, but that's not the most stunning part of his performance, as Francisco Rodriguez won in an astounding 5 games. 5 wins in a single postseason, and if you're unaware, that's the record for most wins by a pitcher in a single postseason. For perspective, K-Rod's 5 victories was just the second time ever that happened, being first done a year prior by legendary starting pitcher Randy Johnson. Since Rodriguez, only once has a pitcher matched that amount, as in 2019, Washington Nationals star Steven Strasburg also won 5 games. Unlike Johnson and Strasburg, all of Rodriguez's wins came out of relief. His 5 wins are not only the most by a relief pitcher in a single postseason, he's the only one with as many as 4. 8 other relievers have won 3 games, but K-Rod outpaces them all. Also for comparison, his 18 2/3 innings pitched were the most ever by a reliever at the time in a single postseason, only having been surpassed once by Andrew Miller in 2016. In the 11 games K-Rod appeared in, the Angels went 10-1. In 4 games during the World Series, Anaheim won 3 of them. This includes an absolute clutch performance in Game 2, where he threw 3 shutout innings en route to his 5th win. In Game 7, he struck out 3 batters in a scoreless 8th inning to record the hold in the decisive win. Without Rodriguez on the team for the playoffs, who knows how far the Angels would have gone. Perhaps the Giants would have come out victorious had they faced a different relief pitcher, and the Angels' lone World Series win would have never happened. The greatest postseason performance by a relief pitcher, capped by a World Series win, all happened thanks to a then obscure loophole in the rulebook, allowing a September call-up to be eligible to play in the playoffs.